I know that we have some listeners from across the pond as well, as we've been seeing. And so today I want to talk about something in my 5-minute share, interestingly enough, that is one of our presidents here in the United States, who I think was the coolest president, founded the National Park Service, was just a really cool guy, Teddy Roosevelt. So Teddy Roosevelt was the president in the early 20th century and was just such a cool guy. Literally, this is one of the things I love about him. He died in, I think, 1919, and the telegram sent by his son Archibald to the rest of the kids was, "The old lion is dead." And that's all he sent. And so, but I think that really speaks to the heart of Teddy Roosevelt. He was a valorous, courageous guy, and he just loved adventure. And I think honestly, he was in touch with the dreamer and the childlikeness that we love to talk about here on the 0400 podcast. Mm-hmm. And he gave this really cool speech in 1910, I believe, called "Citizen in a Republic." And he gave the speech over in France, actually. There was a lot of changes going on in France at the time, declining birth rates, like this weird kind of bourgeoisie, like the really fancy elites were becoming cynical about the working man and all these sorts of things. And he went over there. He had spent like a year hunting in Africa and going to the Congo in northern Africa, and then ended up in Europe. And he gave this speech, I think it was at a university. And there's this really, really famous passage from this that I have on my wall at my house. We have it on the wall at the jiu-jitsu gym. And like there are people, like if y'all know who Brene Brown is, she says there was a pre-Man in the Arena speech and a post-Man in the Arena speech, where her life was radically changed by this essentially one paragraph. And I kind of have the same sort of reaction to this speech. It's such a powerful thing. I want to actually, before I get to the Man in the Arena part, I want to actually read the paragraph above it too from the speech, because it was fantastic. And I think what it does is it's pushing back on the cynicism that comes with becoming like a bitter adult, right? When people get out of touch with the sense of wonder and their joy and their imagination, I think people become cynical, right? They become bitter, they become resentful, and it's really easy to happen. Like I've seen it happen to myself about things as well. And so this whole speech was a pushback against that mentality. And so if you don't mind, I'm going to read 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph is not as famous, but it was from the same speech. And the second paragraph is the famous section that I have on my wall. And I'll kind of give a thumbs up when that part starts, okay? So I'm just going to read this out. "Let the man of learning, the man of lettered leisure, beware of that queer and cheap temptation to pose to himself and to others as the cynic, as the man who has outgrown emotions and beliefs, the man to whom good and evil are as one. The poorest way to face life is to face it with a sneer. There are many men who feel a kind of twisted pride in cynicism. There are many who confine themselves to criticism of the way others do what they themselves dare not even attempt. There is no more unhealthy being, no man less worthy of respect than he who either really holds or feigns to hold an attitude of sneering disbelief toward all that is great and lofty, whether in achievement or in that noble effort which, even if it fails, comes second to achievement. A cynical habit of thought and speech, a readiness to criticize work which the critic himself never tries to perform, an intellectual aloofness which will not accept contact with life's realities. All these are marks not, as the possessor would fain think, of superiority, but of weakness. They mark the men unfit to bear their part manfully in the stern strife of living, who seek in the affectation of contempt for their achievements of others, to hide from others and from themselves their own weakness. The role is easy. There is none easier, save only the role of the man who sneers alike at both criticism and performance." And this is this passage. "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes short again and again, because there's no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat.
Oh,
come on, dude.
Yeah, that's insane.
Awesome.
19,
so,
what year was that?
1910.
1910?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think it's 1910. And I think that speaks directly to the heart of what we're doing here. As far as the effort we're taking to become the valorous, courageous men that do what it takes, right? That dares greatly to dream and to reach for goals that are that transcend ourselves, that's doing something for the world and for the people we love. And it's so easy to look back, and I think we live in this culture where it's like the first instinct is critique. The first instinct is cynicism. And it's so easy. We've been advertised to our whole life. We see like hundreds of advertisements a day. We don't trust people. We don't trust anything. And you have this like bitterness that kind of can well up inside of you. And a lot of times it creates an inaction, but people kind of cling to that. It's almost like a badge of honor. Like there's no use. Like this world is so twisted, there's no use in me even trying to dream, no use in me even trying to achieve or to reach for something bigger than myself. And I think that speaks like truth to that lie, right? That things are hopeless. Like I don't believe that things are hopeless, you know? And we can't believe that things are hopeless, or our life begins to mimic that, and then it will be hopeless. It'll feel hopeless. And so this goes directly also for me into that. It dives into that hero's journey aspect. Like a good hero isn't a hero that has everything together. Like you watch a movie, and the hero has to strive and fail and react and react. Yeah. It's like things are happening to them, right, over and over, and it's really like there. A lot of times, I think of Frodo in Lord of the Rings, right, or Rand al'Thor in Wheel of Time, or Luke Skywalker. Things are happening to them over and over, and they have little to no control over it, and little to no, like, it feels like a lot of times things are outside of their agency, but they still keep moving forward, right? And they still embrace responsibility, embrace the need to do something great, because they recognize there's something bigger than themselves. And in that, they overcome, right? And you have some stories where they strive and they fail and it ends poorly, but at least they strived, right? Like Maximus Aurelius. You love Gladiator, right? It talks about the man in the arena. Maximus, right? That was his name. Right?
Maximus Decimus
Aurelius. Sorry. Yeah. I knew there was
commander
one.
of the armies in the north.
I knew there was one.
Loyal servant to the true emperor of Rome, Marcus Aurelius. Anyway.
That's so good.
Husband to a murdered wife. Come on, dude.
That's so good.
Yeah. I'm in the same age now. This is one of my nerdy things. I like to look up how old actors are in movies.
Yeah.
I'm the same age. He was 39, I believe. And I'm 38, so I'm right around that. But if you think about it, they're probably filming a year before it came out anyway. But same age now as as Maximus.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. I've been doing lots of push-ups to catch up.
What I love, thank you for sharing that, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what I really love about that is he hits obviously the whole idea is try. Like, put yourself out there and try. And I love that, like you're mentioning about jealousy, and the person who just points out the fault of the other person but doesn't actually ever get involved, is like, ironically enough, like pride and insecurity and wishing ill intent because someone's doing something more that you want to do. That, ironically enough, just breeds more inaction. Yeah. You know? And I think that is a lot of people today is that they're jealous, they're angry, they see things on social media that they wish they could have. And ironically enough, it doesn't breed action, it breeds inaction. Like, I would say 98% of the time, you hit the nail on the head for what the term is. It's not hedonistic necessarily.
Nihilism,
yeah. The nihilism breeds in action. And I think that's like, it's something you have to be so careful for, to watch those red flags, because you're pretty toast if you let that infect your worldview.
I almost think that like it may be a symptom of postmodernism that's like crept into our stories, you know? And there's not, everything about postmodernism isn't horrible. I don't think that everything about postmodernism is horrible. But I do think one of the things that it does is it's forcing us to deconstruct things that don't need to be deconstructed. Like when it's infiltrated everything. Like you look at what's happening to our heroes. I think about the new Star Wars trilogy, and I'm sorry if anyone likes it, that I'm going to talk some crap about it. But like you have a hero that has a completed arc in Luke Skywalker and in Han Solo. Where like, let me just take Han Solo as an example. Where in Episode 4, A New Hope, he's a scoundrel that only cares about himself, right? And he only does things for money. It's always out of self-interest. And by the end of Return of the Jedi, he is a powerful general and commander that cares about people and cares about something that's bigger than himself, right? He cares about the cause that is fighting for the side of the right, you know, the good. And he fails over and over again. He gets people killed, you know, like this is something that, you know, this is really, really hard for him to deal with, but he still keeps pushing on for the cause. And then you have this new trilogy that comes out where it's like 30 years later and he's back to the same selfish scoundrel. And I understand that like it may be realistic because life can make people bitter and resentful, right? But it's not good for the story of the hero. Like he did not need to be deconstructed, right? But I think it's almost a symptom of our culture where like people see something to emulate, and rather than emulate it, they scoff at it. Like they see, like we almost have a hatred for success now. I'm not saying we, but like there's like this weird thing in our culture where like the heroes to emulate are now seen as, I don't know, the oppressor, the bad guy, whatever it is. Like it's like this is a very strange thing, and I think even that idea of like questioning the substructure of our civilization, of our mind even, is now infiltrated our stories. And whether it was culture that pushed that into art or art that pushed that into culture, that's really hard to like, you know, it's hard to kind of parse that out.
Yeah.
But I do think that kind of my point today with my 5-minute share was to talk about heroes, and emulation and valor and courage and strength in the face of suffering, you know, and how we need good heroes again. We need strong heroes to emulate as a culture, or else we're doomed, honestly. And so that's what's been on my heart recently, and been on my mind as I've been thinking about kind of where our culture is compared to the 90s. I mean, we were just talking about shows like Rick and Morty, where it's like it is hopeless in that universe and nothing means anything and nothing matters, and it's funny. Like people laugh at the fact that there's like no hope. And then I think about movies like in the 90s, right? Or Gladiator, which I think came out in 2001, where it's clear that there was still this thread of things matter. What you do matters. It's good to be courageous. It's good to be valorous. It's good to care about justice and the things that nowadays are like thrown around as like either tropey, cliches, outdated, you know, things like chivalry, like treating people with respect is now not about how well you treat others. It's about like all about how you treat yourself. And I think treating yourself well is important. But I think a lot of times in treating others well, you are treating yourself well.